Chapter 3, Your Highest Self. And here is a display quote from the book of Philippians, Philippians 2, verses 5 and 6. Quote, "Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, being in the form of God, did not consider it robbery to be equal with God." In the previous chapter, you explored the idea that there's a spark of God within you which you can choose to expand into a consciously larger component of your daily life. This spark is your spiritual essence, your higher self. As your awareness increases that you are a God-realized being, you will welcome it as the central focus of your life. The concept of your higher self will gradually evolve into your highest self, which is truly omniscient, almighty, and capable of producing miracles. Here you will see a new reality, a majestic idea of yourself that previously seemed inconceivable. Your highest self is described in the pronouncement in the display quote that I just read, written by St. Paul in his letters to the Philippians in the New Testament. You move from being a spark or a fragment of God to being able to assert that I am God, and not feel as if you're committing blasphemy or a cardinal sin by such a declaration. Here, the idea that you are equal with God was promoted by Jesus Christ, and you are encouraged by him to let this mind be in you. This isn't the God created by humans, the ego-driven deity who plays favorites and requires ostentatious places of worship, has temper tantrums, demands reparations, and is filled with rage, punishing those who do not do his bidding. Not even close. I am speaking here of the creative source of all being, a God who is responsible for creating the miraculous movement from non-being to being, a God who is formless, who does nothing, yet leaves nothing undone, a God who is everywhere. This is a divine, invisible presence that's within you. This idea is at the basis of all great spiritual teaching throughout all time. Much of organized religious teaching proclaims that God is an all-powerful being outside of you. That idea has been thrown at you since you were old enough to process this absurd notion. God, you were told, watches you and punishes you if you misbehave, but listens to your prayers and helps you resolve your conflicts if you do the right thing and please him. Perhaps it is a radical idea for you to declare, I am God, and God is love, or to believe that he who abides in love abides in God and God in him, from the book of 1 John 4:16, is who you actually are. When you are this God, your essence of pure love, it is all you have to give away. And when you realign yourself in this vein, once again quoting Jesus the Christ, quote, "With men, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible." Now, all things are possible leaves out nothing, including your ability to fulfill any and all wishes that are aligned with God. You may find it difficult at first to be able to assert to yourself that I am God, but when you put it into the context of God as love, and pure love allows you to be almighty, all-knowing, and God-realized, you will, I assure you, begin to regain the omnipotence that is your essence from the moment of your transition from non-being or spirit to being, that is human. I emphasize these teachings of Jesus to show that the declaration of I am God is not only not in opposition to the teachings of Christianity or other spiritual practices, but is fully aligned with these earlier teachings. The reason it may seem blasphemous to say that I am God is because we've adopted the God of the ego, created by humans from ego-based ideas of a God that imitates our most unholy human attributes. I've been studying two great spiritual teachers in depth for several years as I prepared to write this book. One of them is U.S. Anderson, and the book of his that I read, studied, meditated upon, and am now living and teaching is titled 3 Magic Words. The book is 323 pages long, and it was not until the last chapter, after many specific meditations and exercises, after many enlightening words on consciousness, intuition, faith, love, success, immortality, and more, and after investing time and energy in what is being taught by the author, that I discovered what the 3 magic words actually are. Here's the beginning of the final chapter titled The Key. Quote, "This is the ineffable secret, the ultimate illumination, the key to peace and power. You are God. If you will accept this towering truth, dare to stand atop this magnificent pinnacle, universal consciousness will be revealed to you from within. God is there. It is He who peers from behind your eyes, who is your own consciousness, who is your very self. You are not just a part of God, you are altogether God, and God is altogether you." Unquote. This is your highest self. It's indeed a towering assumption, but one, if used in context and alignment with the creative source of all, that is the key to mastering the ability to live a life of your own wishes being fulfilled. After all, with God as you and you as God, all things are possible. This is not an assertion limited to Western teachings or the Christian faith. In the Vedanta, the ancient pre-Christian teachings, we are reminded that we are not a part of, but identical with, that absolute spirit of the world. Before I go any further, I want to share with you some words from my other great spiritual teacher, Neville, regarding this notion of you and me actually being God. Neville's book, The Power of Awareness, contains 27 brief chapters. It's a book that you could easily read in a couple of hours. Yet much like the Tao Te Ching, though it can be read in a brief amount of time, it could also be studied endlessly and you'd repeatedly discover deeper meaning. As I mentioned earlier, I devoted a year to studying, meditating on, practicing, and ultimately writing essays on how to apply the wisdom of that tiny little book of 81 verses. The result was published as a compendium titled Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Living the Wisdom of the Tao, published by Hay House. Neville's brief book had the same kind of magnetic allure for me as did the Tao. It was in my 7th complete reading of Neville's book, and after listening to some of his recorded lectures, that I decided to write this book in an effort to make his stupendous insights more readily available and applicable to those of us now occupying this planet as temporary residents. I've taken extensive notes on Neville's teachings and literally put them to work in my own life. I have lectured throughout the world on the idea of having our wishes fulfilled via the avenue of assuming the power of God that is not only our birthright, but is our very essence. Neville's words remind me to seek my highest self, and whenever I make the decision to live from this awareness, I am immediately at peace and watch as divine consciousness seems to align with me in creating the fulfillment of all that I ask for. As I finished the first 26 chapters in my 7th reading of Neville, I heard once again the same holy refrain that U.S. Anderson offered in his conclusion of 3 magic words. Neville begins his final chapter, titled Reverence, with these words, quote, "In all creation, in all eternity, in all the realms of your infinite being, the most wonderful fact is that which is stressed in the very first chapter of his book. You are God. You are the I am that I am. You are consciousness. You are the creator. This is the mystery. This is the great secret known by the seers, the prophets, and the mystics throughout the ages. This is the truth that you can never know intellectually. The important thing is that it is within you. It is you. It is your world.